Hello. Yeah, thank you very much, Yana. So it's great. Actually, all of these documents which Yana was talking about, these documents are really, really big. It doesn't just include those two or three bullet point kind of thing which we are mentioning here. There are so many recommendations which you can go through. These recommendations are for the civil society organizations, for the young people, for the funders, governments, and UN agencies themselves. And actually, there is too much of thing to really when you go deep into it. So it's just like physics, chemistry, commerce. Like when you are in the ninth class, you just get to know a little bit of it. What are the terms? But you can do PhD also in the same issues. So it depends on what kind of localization you really want to do, right? I'll tell you about my own story. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit more about these documents, why we really needed these kind of documents. Before 2015, when we got UNSCR 2250, we got it on 9th December 2015. Before that, there were just two perspectives for young people. One is for the victim, that young people are the victim of violence around them, so they need to be supported. And second is perpetrator. So the young people are getting involved in the conflict, and that's why they need to be stopped. Okay? Supported or stopped. But nobody was talking about that young people can be a positive contributor to or very important stakeholder to peace building. So nobody was talking about how we can partner with young people, how we can engage them in decision making. And that is why we had UNSCR 2250, so many young people, youth-led peace-building organizations like UNOI, Search for Common Ground, UN peace-building offices, all of them came together. They advocated for this kind of resolution, and we got on 9 December 2015. So that is why like we needed it, okay? That is first thing. The second thing is, if you talk about, you understand vicious cycles, the cycles which reinforces themselves. So let's say if you start with one, like here there is a circle which talks about that young people are not being able to do enough, okay? So if they are not being able to do enough, then of course people are not sensitized about the potential young people really have. That is why they don't create those programs, those opportunities for young people to be able to do more. And that is why, again, young people are not able to do more. Then again, their work is not in the limelight. Again, people don't have that trust in young people. So, this cycle is reinforcing themselves. Like again and again, the same loop is happening. So somebody need to intervene. All of us need to intervene in different levels. Young people in some category and other capacity. Now you must be thinking, what's happening? Like some people are sitting there, some people are sitting there. Here are also young people. Here are young people. How it happened? How it like really happened? I'll tell you. I also started somewhere there, sitting young person. I'm still young, okay, but even younger. Started somewhere there like that, attending different conferences, learning about this thing, sensitizing, like getting myself equipped with different kind of skills and knowledge. And so initially when I was in my university, I started volunteering. I got to know about interfaith. I joined different kind of training programs, conferences, summits about interfaith. And I got to know about Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which talks about that every young people, every person actually, not just young people, every person has a responsibility towards the community in which alone his or her full potential is possible to achieve. So we all need to contribute to the society around us because it supports us, so we need to also support. And that is why I'm telling about my own experience, like how we really start. Maybe you can pick few things, few food for thought, which you can like start doing, building upon later. Um, yeah, so after learning, I started my own organization, Youth for Peace International. So actually there are three levels of work which can be done in the community. One is with the community, so tier one. Second is mid-level work, and the third is top level engagement. So with the community, you are directly getting engaged. Let's say you are training them, you are helping them in rehabilitation support. So my organization is actually working with Rohingya refugees in Delhi, and we are providing them humanitarian support there. So that's the first level of the support. The second one is mid-management, sorry, not mid-management, like mid-level. So in the mid-level, what you do, you do these kind of programs where you bring the people together. They think, they design a different kind of policy suggestions. There are training programs where you build the capacity. So actually you are not directly working with so-called beneficiaries, like so-called beneficiaries, not they are the beneficiaries. So you are not directly working with the community, but you are training the people who can go back to their community and work there. Okay, so that is the mid level work. And the top level is you are directly influencing the policies. You are working with the military, you are working with the governments. That is that. So my organization is doing work with the Rohingya refugees, rehabilitation support. We are also working in mid-level where we are organizing different peace education training programs. And we are also working with different kind of policy makers, UN agencies, governments, and that is how we are trying to intervene in all these three levels. So, and because we believe in networking, we believe in working at the policy level also, we joined the United Network of Young Peace Builders, which is a youth-led network of 90 plus organizations from 50 countries around the world. All youth-led organizations working towards the same vision of having young people's contribution to peace building. So when we joined them, of course it's a very old network, but always led by young people. We started in 1989. It's a Netherlands-based network, and we have been able to do different kind of work. Before I was invited by UNFPA to join the regional consultation. We were talking about regional consultations, right? Like after 2250, regional consultation happened in different regions, and I was invited there. I went back. So it was a similar kind of process. It's a big group. We had like 42 people from 21 countries, and we were discussing what can be done by different kind of stakeholders, what young people can do. I went back to my country. I organized different kind of programs in the follow-up of those recommendations. And that was a really good start because I think since then we have been collaborating with UNFPA very frequently. We have got support from UNFPA to organize this training program, online training program for localizing UNSCR 2250, so building the capacity of young people so that they can work with different stakeholders in their country, in their community, and able to implement some programs regarding that. So those kind of things. Other than that, in the UNOI, we have been able to, like, we of course are working in different regions like Euro-Mediterranean region, then Caucasus region, MENA region, Africa, Latin America and Caribbean region, all these regions. We are also supporting UNSCR with refugee campaign. We are supporting UN IOM with their migration campaign, and the best part was that in support of Carnegie Foundation, we could stabilize the first ever Youth Peace Prize, which was given to a youth-led organization from Colombia. The theme of our session is actually that we all are peace builders. So we need to choose where you want to involve, what kind of work you want to do. So, and yeah, we are also working with different countries and UN agencies and young people to come together and develop the national action plans. And more will be shared by Crisel, because we are learning from them. Their work in Philippines is really amazing. And I am trying how we can learn from them and share that learning with different countries which are also trying towards the same kind of thing. So countries in Sri Lanka, Nepal, Jordan, Kenya, Finland, all of these countries are trying towards the same kind of achievement, which I think Philippines is really leading. So we will learn more from her.
Yeah. All right. So again, I'm Chris. I'm a peace and development worker in the Philippines under the OPAP. It's the office mandated to oversee, integrate, and facilitate the implementation of comprehensive peace process, and that includes the communist insurgencies, the Bangsamoro, and also, of course, providing socio-economic development in conflict-affected areas. My work I started as a writer, actually. So we go to communities affected by conflicts, not necessarily affected, but are vulnerable also. And I think one of the core learning that we can get from the Philippines that for the past decades, even before the resolution was adopted and even lobbied at the UN, the Philippines has been already pursuing peace education, for example. And before violent extremism was even coined, the Philippines has been susceptible, and also a lot of actors are already been doing initiatives to really engage young people and initiate peace education activities on the ground. So, they say that humanity, of course, with the population of young people today, we know that we are what? A billion across the world. They say that we have the capacity to initiate a cultural peace. Or contrarily, we also have the capacity to what? Initiate war. And apparently, as all have already been known, the Philippines has recently been undergone a Marawi crisis. The Marawi crisis was caused by the Mauti group, an international linked extremist group by ISIS. This happened in the southern part of the Philippines last year. But actually, the cost of war can also be translated into what is the price for peace. Imagine for how many bullets that we would buy, how many rice we can buy actually, and how can we end poverty at the same time. We may not realize individually or different contexts in our countries have different kind of violence that we experience. It might not be armed violence, but it might be a sociocultural or structural. We're not just aware. But I think the youth today are very dynamic. The youth today are very innovative. And I think you taking part in this dialogue already proves that the young people really is willing to sit at the table and even own the table. So, the cost of war in the Philippines, even for the 4 decades of engaging different peace agreements, and it is not only exclusive in the Marawi crisis, but for 4 decades we've been engaging with the New People's Army, Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighter, and the Abu Sayyaf group. The necessity to come up with a roadmap that really encourages the Filipinos to take part in the peace process was through the 6-point peace and development roadmap. Among this is seeing that the peace agreements are being implemented, the normalization phase for former rebels are being pursued upon, and of course, providing socio-economic development, for example, roads, education, specifically for children and youth, are also being provided. But at the core of the Philippine work on peace and security is really building a culture of peace and conflict sensitivity. The culture of peace might sound grand normally for young people. If you would be asked what peace is for you, what would be normally answer? For the past dialogues I've been to, of course, that includes being able to send yourself to school, seeing that your community is peaceful. But there is also a discrepancy and really the need to articulate the voice of the young people who may not be articulate, who are not able to express themselves, who are traumatized by conflicts since they were children. I think this platform, the Youth Peace Table that we produce in the Philippines, serve as a framework and a guiding framework in really developing and engaging young people on the ground. The Youth Peace Table started like what is called, it's a peace table. It's basically extending the negotiation table to the young people for them to contribute in the peace process. First, of course, we involve in dialogues. How do we integrate the youth peace agenda in the agenda of those who are involved in the negotiation table? Because normally, what the negotiators would do in the table is just put lump sum, what are their concerns, for example, on socioeconomic reforms, on disenfranchisement. But the Youth Peace Table was able to provide a platform that would really weave the stories of young people, the agenda of young people, your stories, And it's crucial when policymakers are able to identify, hear, not just listen, but of course, able to incorporate these agendas in the peace agreements. So, of course, yeah, it's for the communist peace process as well as advocates for culture, peace, and non-violence. And the youth agenda are incorporated in the peace negotiations. And what is highlighted, the youth peace table, is really conversing with young people, gathering their agenda, making sure that these are consolidated. It serves, this agenda is not just put into paper, but is put into policy, given to panels, given to policymakers to consider what really is the language of the youth today. If you are to be asked what is your language for today, would it be a culture of fear, intolerance, misogyny, hate? We know that today it's easy to hate. And it's even easier to share hateful narratives even on social media. But when you put the resources, when the young people consolidate their efforts and really spreading peace on the ground, I think it's a resource that everyone can really rely on, and not just for the young people, but also engaging other sectors on the ground. For that, it's not just about creating a national action plan, it's actually creating a consolidated partnership of not just young people, take note of that, but also of the government, of civil society organizations, of women groups, of indigenous peoples. The youth peace and security work must not move in isolation with other sectors. It consolidates partnerships with other stakeholders on the ground and also takes into considerations the learnings from other policies that we have made. National Action Plan is not new in the Philippines. Since 2010, we have the National Action Plan on Women, Peace, and Security. And I think it's one of the greatest resources that we have why Philippines is moving towards an FYPS. But I'd like to share that since we're talking about young people, how innovative are them, how creative are them, the Philippines have been engaging young people in a creative manner. So we integrated the roadmap to Philippine National Action Plan Youth and Peace and Security through a nationwide peace convergence peace caravan. It's a nationwide peace buzz. That's like what it said, peace buzz. It's drum beating the voice of the young people in conflict-affected areas. It's not just a document, but it's how we start weaving stories of young people who may be recruited or not, who may be exposed in the violence, or at the forefront of doing, it's very usual in the Philippines, you would see cases of young people making bombs, recruiting on the road, even tricycle drivers would recruit passengers, even on social media. And I think it's important that a certain country must move as a whole towards YPS, and that through Convergence Peace Caravan, in connection with other stakeholders, for example, the CSOs, NGOs, and other workers, as a whole, we can move towards creating a national action plan that is owned by the young people themselves, and or also other sectors recognizes the value of those young people involved. At the core of the NAP-YPS in the Philippines is that we see to it that it is youth-led, youth-managed, and youth-focused. Why is it important? We don't want to come up with a document or a policy that is not owned by young people. Worse, we don't want the young people not see the relevance of YPS. That's why it's important in the process of formulating an app and even during the implementation and monitoring. That's why the entire process of the NAP should not exclude other youth groups, but of course invite other people to take part in really cultivating peace towards nonviolence. Next. Just to show you how the peace caravan would look like, it would go from the Cordillera Administrative Region, it's a northern part of the Philippines, towards the southern part, where we will conducting dialogues, regional consultations with young people, together with youth advisory group, who will produce stories, who will consolidate narratives and agenda of the young people, and able to say that the young people are consolidated and being partnered with during the entire consultation. Next. Just to show you some photos of our initiatives before then, it's making sure that the agenda being produced is forward-looking. It says a lot when young people are able to articulate their visions for peace and even the pathways for peace. How can we achieve peace in our communities? And I think if you are to be asked what kind of action plan you would want for your own country, it's necessary for us to see that it is youth-led, as I say, managed by young people, and the platform is, of course, owned by the young people. It's crucial when young people are othered on discussions. I've been through also those certain negotiations or certain simple meetings at discussions, and even the agenda of the youth is being othered, disregarded, and even not really taken into consideration of. That's why today it's important when we provide a platform that everyone are able to articulate, that is owned, and actually recognizing that there are a lot of actors who can be able to contribute in making such move in this kind of youth peace and security work. It might sound new to you, but without knowing, you are actually doing already a peace building work in your own communities. Say, for example, when you organize young people, when you organize youth dialogues, these are crucial steps already on how you can start engaging young people towards YPS work. And I think the three of us are here today to help you link, to help you bridge your organizations, and of course, the different countries working for the YPS towards consolidating efforts regionally and internationally.
Thank you so much, Sheena. And I think what our two friends before me had shared is rich enough to already, hopefully, to already inspire you to engage further in peace building. And I salute both of you for doing such work. One thing that I want to say before anything else, and this is very much evident in both our work, everyone's work, is I think we need to be mindful of the other, right? Conflict usually starts if the person or two people or a multiple number of people do not listen, do not know where the other person is coming from. Then you will start disagreeing, then you will start miscommunicating, then you will start fighting over a piece of space that could actually be shared by everyone. And this is one takeaway that I want to share with you, and this is one thing that we realized, even in the world of human rights activism and scholarship, that the other person, and because in this age where there's so much about me, about focusing on the self, which is not bad, right? But then, while imagine yourself walking and looking at your phone on the street, right? And not minding anyone who you interact with, you end up bumping into the other person. You end up falling on the ground, falling on the, on a hole. So it's about how can I understand the other person, and how can I be able to negotiate where I am coming from with where the person actually is coming from, right? A lot of conflicts nowadays are happening because individuals at a certain point stop wanting to know where the other person is coming from. Plus the fact that conflicts actually stem from limited resources, right? She was talking about oil, she was talking about food, she was talking about property, she was talking about land. People at this day and age, there's so much demand for resources, but then the resources are scarce, right? And that's the reason why there's conflict. Because some people are not willing to share. Some people reach to the point where they cannot share anymore because that's their only way. Having access to to those resources are their only way to survive. Okay? So that's my first point. The other thing is, sometimes conflicts are necessary. In a way, because out of these conflicts, you can produce knowledge. You can commit change. What I think is unnecessary are the violence, are the discrimination, are the marginalization of people while conflicts are happening. Okay? And this is where human rights step in. Human rights, in basic terms, it's so difficult. I studied human rights. I took my master's in human rights. And when a person asks me what are human rights, what do they mean? It is actually difficult. But for me, I think the simplest way to say it is, human rights are values that are right for human beings. Okay? And these are things that you are born with. Okay? As human beings. So, when people are violated of their rights, when people get hurt, when people die, when people get separated from their families, when people get separated from their lands, that in itself is already violence. And that in itself is already a violation of their human rights. Okay? I will go much deeper and tell you about, and when you talked about gender, right? In a conflict situation, you will always, the most invisible people, the most invisible human beings are the women, are the girls. Number one, because you don't see them on the streets fighting. You don't see them carrying guns. But some of them at the moment are, but more than those with male bodies, women and girls are expected to stay at home. Women and girls are the ones who wait for their fathers, their sons to come home and to fend for their needs. Right? So it is important to see it from a gender lens because women and girls, I am also including people of diverse sexuality such as the LGBTIQ community. These are the people who are most marginalized because their needs in a time of conflict are not met in terms of their sexual and reproductive health and rights. There are things that there are needs that are not provided when conflict, when resources are being used up. And most of the times, it is the men it is those with male bodies who have access to food, who have access to better clothing, to better shelter, because it's a patriarchal society. Men are expected to fight in time of conflict. Women, girls, and people of diverse sexualities are the ones that are left behind and that are whose needs have to be set aside because they have to provide. They need to nourish those who are fighting in conflict areas. Okay? And this is still a struggle that is happening until now. Okay? To end what I'm saying, you're all in a very peaceful room. Cool. I think you all get along with each other, hopefully, in Bangkok. This is not, we cannot simulate a situation of conflict at the moment because we are not in that position. Okay? What I am telling you at the moment is, especially if you want to contribute, aside from thinking of the other, number one, you need to help break barriers. Okay? Breaking barriers means that do not contribute to the other person's further marginalization. Okay? You will come back to your You will come back to your respective communities and just be that person who will allow the other person to live his, her, or their lives and understand where that person is coming from. Number two, keep the discourse ongoing. Talk to the person who disagrees with you because it will eventually come up with a new knowledge that for you will make you a better person. Number three, mind your privileges. Okay? Compare to the people who cannot access this space at the UN, you are less vulnerable to be in a conflict situation unless you choose to. Unless you want to intern for, let's say, a UN agency that works in a conflict area. But directly, you cannot be able to, you will not be immediately a direct victim of conflict. So please mind your privileges, because if you mind your privileges, then you can be you would be able to open yourself to the other. It's all about the other, my friends. Lastly, sustainable peace will not be actualized unless people are able to enjoy all their rights. No one should be left behind because every human being deserves their basic human rights and to live in peace. So thank you very much.
It's a shared feeling. It's a shared feeling, and I think sometimes UN Secretary General must also be feeling the same, because it's a huge world, and peace is not in the hand of others. Peace is hand of ourselves. You need to be peaceful by yourself. You need to train yourself to be peaceful, to be able to help others. I think I am having several questions how to use education in the communities where there are ethical differences, religious differences. I would say let's start with the individual. So there are three levels of involvement if you want to do. One is with yourself. The second is with the others in the in your local community, and the second is the whole system itself. So when you want to work with yourself, so I say it start with 2H, 2M. So heart, mind, mouth, and hands. So with your heart, what you can do, look inward, think how peaceful you are, reflect, go to meditation if you can, see like what you can improve in yourself. You need to develop that patience in yourself to be able to deal with this tough kind of situations all over the world, in your personal lives, in your professional lives. So you need to have that kind of patience, and for that you need to be very strong from your heart. Mind, know about your prejudices, know about your biases, learn more, get more skills. See, it's not very easy job. If it would have been easy to achieve peace, world would have been peaceful by so far, right? So it's not very easy job. You cannot just do it like this. You need to learn a lot. Like if you really want to do well in your PhD or in your commerce, science, or something like that, you put so much of effort. You start learning from the class 1, school, high school, PhD, all of that. So why not about peace? Like if you really want to achieve it, why not you put effort to it, right? And it's not one person's responsibility to be peaceful or to bring peace for others. It's everyone's responsibility. So learn about it. Learn about rights. Learn about other space. How to be mindful. Learn everything. Learn about religion before you speak about it. Yeah, there is a lot of conflict happening because people speak about it, but they don't have enough knowledge around it, right? So learn, gain those skills. Then comes the mouth. So that's where you become mindful about what you are speaking, how you are behaving with others. So and use this to support other people. Then comes your hand. So try to do something which really helps the most vulnerables. That is something. Act, right? So H, M, M, H. This is what you can do on a individual level. Then comes the society around you. So once you will be, okay, I'll tell you one more thing, okay? The person who is really good, who really want to achieve something good for himself or for the whole community. Good means it's like universal kind of growth. It's not like just like having supreme power kind of thing, but for everyone else, that person will suffer a lot. Be ready for it. It's not easy, okay? It's not easy. Like, I'll tell you an example. Let's say if you can spend 5 hours to study some subject and you can get 80% of marks, then for achieving 85% of marks, you cannot just add like proportionately 5 more hours. You need to spend another 5 days. For 90% of your marks, you need to spend another 15 days. For 100% of your marks, you need to spend all the 365 days of your year, right? So that is what, like it's even more tougher when you try to achieve it to the last miles. So have that patience in you. And of course you will face a lot of challenge. So you can either quit at this point of time that I'm not gonna peaceful. My seniors, elders gave me this world full of crisis and everything. I'm gonna give the same to my younger generation also. Your choice. But if you really want to work towards it, you will have to gain all those knowledge, skills, experiences. Start doing small thing. You don't need to start an organization, or you need not to work with UN. See, you need to understand, if UN could have solved the things, then UN exists for 70 plus years, right? So it's not just the responsibility of UN to solve it. And they are not enough. So why just think from the perspective that when you will work or you are intern with UN, then only you can solve it. In an individual capacity, if you are as a student, as a corporate professional in the community, as a father, as a son, as a daughter, as a mother, in every role you can be peaceful. Doing small things, love other self, religion. So most of the religions, I'll tell you, most of the religions actually what happens, they tell almost same things, okay? So the same things are the toughest thing to do. And people just are not able to do those things. So what religions tell? Love each other, okay? Love, toughest part to do, okay? Forgive each other, toughest part to do, okay? So, and these are the, like, take care of each other, love each other, do the right things, toughest part to do. Other than, okay, wear these kind of dresses, have your hairs like this, like all of those things, pray like this, clean yourself like this, very easy to do. So try doing the toughest part. And it's very common. All knows, like loving will solve this very easily. Forgiving will solve it very easily. Try doing it. That is the smallest thing. You don't need to be in UN to forgive. You not to need to be in UN for loving or start your own organization. Just help them others. Thank you.
I found there are some people ask about the intergeneration. So maybe we go for this question that, can you comment on the problem of intergenerational divide and its effect on young people? And how have you tried to address this issue in your work?
Yeah, actually it's similar to what young people have been experiencing, particularly on exclusion of youth narratives, not just on the youth interventions, but also in the policy making. More often, programs would be crafted by policymakers, not really capturing the language of the youth, but the language of adults. The question of intergenerational gap, it fuels distrust of young people to policymakers. Second, it questions the capacity of different generations on trusting young people towards really shaping their own future. I think what is crucial today is that people, and not just people, but the different cultures of young people are also able to cultivate that stereotypes, biases towards other religions, other cultures, and biases towards different generations. What is similar to adults, for example, is that they share the same narratives of young people when they're also youth themselves. I think it's the common ground that we can really put our resource in. That adults now, policymakers now, who might be at their 60s or what, also became youth at their own age. And those kind of learnings of wisdom of how do they took part on policy making, for example, on peace building work, let them also reflect that young people today and young people years ago are able to share that same language. And the language of peace does not depend on the generation. The language of youth actually can be carried on by children also, by seniors as well. And I think it's important for us also to acknowledge that people live in different realities. And we need to respect that certain reality, of course, value tolerance, and of course recognize that the youth today and the youth of the youth in the previous years can work hand in hand and can be able to produce something that is really reflective of what the young people are able to say in today's time.
I think she almost covered it very well, that every generation has lived in a different kind of realities. We work on these parallel truths. So sometimes there is a truth for me, there is a truth for you, and both can coexist. We need not to try to make a truth for us. It's possible. So realities are different. Generations have lived in different realities. We just need to see how both realities, both experience can really go forward, right? Because it's more about coexistence and then learning from both experiences. If you can work really well with social media, maybe if the other generation cannot work with social media, but they have their different kind of experiences, right? So it's just how you can use the social media also, this also, and working towards that. So I think you have covered it really well. Thank you.
There is a special question for you, pointing out you. Can you tell us a little more about how to mind our privilege in peace building?
That's difficult, yeah? Because, number one, it's difficult, but it's not impossible to mind your privilege. So privileges are what do you call this? The characteristics, these are the values that is posed upon you. So if, let's say, you are able to study in a good school, and that you are, let's say, you come from a global north country, like let's say, you come from the UK, okay? Someone who's male, who has a male body, who does not have any resources to study in a good school, and is, let's say, from the Philippines, has to work so much in order to achieve the level of knowledge as the other person, okay? So these realities, knowing about these realities is known rocket science. With the emergence and with the strength of different channels of information, with these kinds of summits, with the way that you interact with a lot of people, I think is already, let's say, quote unquote, an opportunity for you to be able to realize where you stand in this world, okay? I am not saying to also live a life as someone coming from the global south, no. But what I'm telling you here is, if you have the privilege of knowledge, if you have the privilege of resources, if you have the privilege of power, then it becomes more of your responsibility to make sure that you do not become a source of suffering for the other person. Okay? Because at this moment in time, there are a lot of people who are blinded by their privileges, that they do not realize that they themselves are contributing to other people's suffering. And I do not blame these people because they were sheltered, because they were told that because they live in a space where they don't interact mostly by people that they are different from. But I think, especially now that you're interacting with different kinds of nationalities, with different kinds of genders, sexualities, then it becomes more of your responsibility to not contribute to any kind of suffering for the other person. Okay? So that is my advice to you. Start it now, because the world is currently suffering from a lot of misinformation, from a lot of fake news, telling young people that they are this and they are that, but they're not actually like that. You need to be mindful of your reality. You need to be mindful of the present, of what you can do, because you have the responsibility to make a change, not for the worse, but for the better in your societies.
See, it's very simple, right? If you are adding 1 plus 1, it will become 2. If you are adding Na plus Cl, then it will become NaCl, right? If you will have physics law, if you will have action, then there will be a reaction to it. These are like universal laws kind of thing. So you cannot change them. If the ingredient will be violence, the output result cannot be peace. It's very common. Like, give me any example where this really happened, where people didn't have any, hatred towards the party who won, or where, like everything became all fine. People were not having any need of reconciliation or rehabilitation, or not trauma from those kind of feelings. It's not possible. So I don't think it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add, it's basically saying that culture of peace starts when you end the cycle of violence. So basically, addressing violence with another violence that would not cause a comprehensive, or rather, a holistic definition of peace. And what the problem today is that we tend to come up with short-term solutions on how we end violence nowadays. But we tend to forget that what are diplomacy for, peace negotiations, and how do we cultivate a community that is really cohesive. It's talking about social cohesion, community resiliency, when you provided them violence as an answer to another violence. I think it's important to note also that armed violence will never be right, and we don't want to add to the suffering of other people, and we don't want to be part of that cycle of violence.